This was one of my favorite picks that the Royals made in the draft this year. It's a fifth rounder. McIlvain has been a highly touted guy ever since he came out of high school.
Mhm.
So when he went to campus, there was talks that he could be like a legit kind of Friday night starter. Just never really panned out. Arkansas threw him in the bullpen. It was absolutely dominant for the Razorbacks in the bullpen. It seems like the Royals want to keep him in that same kind of role, and the stuff just plays. It plays real well, and I think this is like a type of arm that could move quickly through the system. And the Royals have a dominant lefty that's in their bullpen in not too long. All right, welcome to another episode of the Royals Pipeline, brought to you by KC Sports, or part of KC Sports Network. I'm Jared. That's Kev. Excited for another episode here. We are approaching minor league baseball playoffs. Somehow we're at the end of August. Don't know how we got here, but Kev, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Like you said, we're kind of reaching the end of the minor league season right now. We got minor league playoffs coming up. Royals are kind of good. We're going to have rosters kind of expand. I mean, not as expand like it used to be when we had the old 40-man expansion, but we could be seeing some guys coming up in September. So even in a last year with the Royals playoff chances at 0.1%, according to Fangraphs, there's still a lot to look forward to if you're really a hardcore Royals fan.
Yeah, as you mentioned, won 8 straight, still in last place in the Central with that 8-game winning streak. 9-1 in their last 10. They still have a differential of -91, which shows you how bad the season's been going. But I think I saw someone was it Jared Kohler tweeted out something like if they had won all of the games that they blew in the eighth or ninth inning, that they would be in first place or have a chance for a playoff spot. And it just shows you like that's been the downfall of this team. Everybody kind of wants to blame Q. Everybody wants to blame other people within the organization, the front office, but it's the bullpen didn't pan out. You got Strom, you got Estevez, you had Ursig. That was supposed to be the back end of your bullpen. When all three fail, like that's why the season's going the way it is.
Yeah. And it doesn't help too when you're seeing guys like Jonathan Bolin doing pretty
Yeah,
well in Philadelphia,
Sisk.
Sisk doing well. So it's like you're kind of like, boy, man, we got rid of these kind of talented young arms for veterans who haven't carried their weight, and they're no longer really on this roster, right? Estevez is on the IL, Urseg's in AAA Omaha, and Strom's no longer on this roster. So, I appreciate that the Royals are trying to like mix things up and giving some guys some chances. That's what you do at this time of the year to see who can be part of it in 2027. But you're right. The Royals, the bullpen was a big weakness, and it's been a weakness in the past. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they build it, because the reality is you just can't build a bullpen entirely through free agency. You got to be able to have guys that come up from in your system, guys that can really maybe move from a starter to a bullpen role. And I think that could happen this offseason with a couple players, but
Yeah.
we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, and we've seen like we talked about it, Bridges, that's what he's done in this draft. A lot of the money savers that they've gone after have been guys who have a high opportunity to be a reliever. They have 2+ pitches basically. Maybe don't have the best numbers in college, but the stuff is there, and guys who could possibly move quickly through the minor leagues. I have seen some people complaining about the potential draft implications here by the Royals being good all of a sudden. I get less worried about it because it's a draft lottery now. We saw the Royals had a decent record last year and they were picking sixth this year. So like again, yes, they'll have less of a chance for 1-1, but I don't think the worst team has gotten the first overall pick, right? Was it the White Sox weren't their lowest team last year? I thought it was the Rockies.
Yeah, so I mean the Rockies were one. I think the Nationals were worse than the White Sox. So,
Yeah.
and then I think the year before, I think the Bazana year was the Guardians, right? So so you're right. I mean, I'm not worried about that either. I mean, I think that's overblown. I think obviously you want a 1-1, but with a draft lottery, anything can happen. And so and we've seen the Royals try to lose, and then they were out of the top. I think the top 5 conversation anyways when they tanked in 2023. So we've seen that doesn't even really work. And as a Sacramento Kings basketball fan, I've been there where it's like we're tanking a lot for the number 1 pick, and that it's never happened. So like, be careful what you wish for, Royals fans.
Yeah, there's an assumption that he said they'll get the number 1 pick, but I mean, there is no guarantee in that anymore. So,
No.
couple other topics we want to get into before we get into a couple of segments here. We're going to do a drafty update. We're going to do some Rule 5 protection, but um, we're going to go into the Royals, the new top 100s. MLB Pipeline released theirs, Baseball America released theirs, Just Baseball released theirs. Royals got three players, and
Mhm.
the top 100 is all the same three players, different orders based on which list you looked at. But Angel Gomez, Kendry Churio, Josh Hammond. That's the three guys that are in everybody's top 100 right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty. I mean, those trios pretty consistent, and Gomez is probably the highest riser of the bunch. I mean, if you look at a lot of prospect experts, they're really high on it. I mean, a lot of people are talking about Gomez as a possible, let's be honest, number one guy. I mean, that's pretty high helium we're talking about. We're not just talking about, oh yeah, he's a top 50 guy, or hey, he's a top 25 guy. We're talking about a possibly number one prospect because we've talked about on this show the power, the profile, the speed, the contact tool. It's all there. And again, he's only 17 years old. The Royals really haven't had this kind of prototype in their system ever,
Yeah.
at least from Latin America. And so, I mean, it's really exciting. But then you also got Churio, who's been really dominant. I know that they've kind of slowed him down just to limit his workload down the stretch. And Josh Hammond, who's been a pretty consistent bat in Colombia, kind of as their everyday shortstop. So, like I do think, having three top 100 prospects is pretty good considering probably a couple years ago we weren't having any top other than Jack, which was only really like a cup of coffee, and Carter Jensen, which was very short lived too.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention David Shields, too, who's cracked a
Mhm.
couple of people's top 100s. He wasn't in Just Baseballs, but I think he
Right.
made Baseball Americas.
Yes.
I don't know if he made Pipelines either.
Yeah. I think he made Baseball Americas. I don't think the Pipeline. He's kind of a polarizing one because the stats weren't as dominant this year. The strikeout numbers have been great for him. The walk numbers are great, but I think there's always a big concern is that he's not really a fastball forward guy like say a Kendry Churio. Like he doesn't have the 95, 98 plus stuff.
Yeah.
But Shields is really good. He's really polished. I mean, I think there's definitely a Chris Bubic kind of pitcher in there at the very least, maybe something more. But we have seen Shields crack some top hundreds in some prospect experts lists.
Yeah, and everybody looks at the ERA and like you see a 3.97, but the FIP is 2.73. I think the XFIP's just buff 3. Like he's been throwing really, really well for. I mean, he's a 19-year-old already in high A, and
Right.
he dominated low A in 2025. He posted a 2.01 ERA, and he's looked really good. I mean, you look at a kid that's 19. We talk about polish. We talked about that constantly on Just Baseball on the draft side of things. Is when he came out of the draft, this is one of the most polished high school arms that we've seen. Yes, like you talked about the velo, not quite there. Like it's still low 90s, but he's been up the tick. He's been up to 94, I guess, in this August. So as the weather gets warmer, he's starting to throw harder. So I think it's like a guy who throws strikes. He's 64.3% strikes out of all the pitches that he's thrown this year for a 19-year-old. It's insane.
Right. 19-year-old, what came from a cold weather,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, state. I mean, which, that's not like a baseball hotbed. It's not like he's coming from Florida or California or anything like that. Um, like I said, it's going to be really interesting because, one of the trends that we have seen, and the Mariners have been really big advocates for it, is we've definitely seen a lot of pitchers kind of spend very limited or like no time in AAA. And so
Hmm.
you're going to look at probably Churio and Shields going to AA next year. Will the Royals kind of follow the Mariners model of just saying, hey, we're just going to move him up to the majors? And I get it. AAA is not a great level right now. It's very offensive heavy. The park factors are very offensive friendly, especially Werner Park. The competition is really 4A guys that you're not
Yeah.
really getting any top prospects anymore that are playing in AAA. And if they do, it's very short lived. So I think, to be honest, right, it's like you have Shields and Churio, who are 19 and 18 respectively, who could be making their debuts next year as 20 and 19-year-olds, which is wild, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's wild that those guys can't even buy beers, at the Kauffman Stadium ballpark, and they could be playing, pitching in Kauffman Stadium maybe in September of next year.
And then you have Gomez if he's on like a Juan Soto track. You got another guy who's gonna like be on a 20-year-old major league debut. It's kind of insane. I do think. Do you think there's some guys missing from the Royals farm system that should be in the top 100?
I think the biggest one is definitely Blake Mitchell. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's like, does he belong in that list? Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been the Royals' really poster prospect. He's represented the Royals in the futures game the last couple years. He's played in the fall league. He's hit bombs. But again, with the strikeouts, right? And the
Hmm.
strikeouts, and we know the high walk rates, and I think the power is there. I think the defense is very elite, but I think the strikeouts and the fact that he hasn't played in Double A, and I know that I kind of posted this on Twitter, right? Like Young Chung who was playing in Low A, was promoted to Double A. Now a lot of people said, hey, like Luca Tresh is on a inactive, like a short term inactive
Yeah.
list. I mean, doesn't make the playoffs are starting. Quad Cities is playing in the playoffs. Northwest Arkansas isn't. Does it make Are they just? Is it maybe makes sense to just have Mitchell stay with it? And I get all those factors, but it's kind of surprising that Mitchell's really been almost in high A for almost 2 years, and he still hasn't made it to Double A. And and you kind of wonder why. Is it because the Royals don't want to expose him? Is it because they just want to slow play him? Is there something that they still think is going to break out? You know, I think if like Mitchell went to Double A and absolutely raked, I think he would be a top 100 guy. But you can't stay in High A and you've been there for 2 years and expect, oh yeah, I'm going to be a top 100 guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I noticed about Pipeline, what they did with his updated rankings, they put a 35 on the hit tool. They put a 30 on the run. So
Oh,
that's probably why you're not seeing Blake Mitchell in the top 100. It's like, yes, I get he's a catcher, but you're running a 30 run tool. That's not great.
no.
35 hit. I'm kind of a little bit surprised at that. To me, it's like, I think it's more of an average to above average hit tool, like a 40-45 range. Because yes, the strikeout percentage is high. I think that's the kind of the concern. But when he does make contact, it's barreled every single time. And I think the thing I've noticed about him too is that he's got the ability to kind of have a good feel for the strike zone. So you kind of see the walks increase. So I don't know if I would go 35 hit tool. It seems kind of harsh by MLB Pipeline.
It really is. And like I said, this is why I wish we kind of saw in Double A, because especially with like high A and low A, sometimes the pitching is so erratic. Yeah, you got like David Shields types, right? But it's like
Yeah.
you also have pitchers that might never
Mm.
ever go beyond high A ball. And I kind of wonder what would Mitchell be like if he faced better pitching that was hitting the zone more, and would he adjust? Would he say like, okay, I got to swing more because like I'm seeing less balls like I did in low A and high A. And I think sometimes that's a hard part for a lot of guys who are drafted out of high school and just play pro ball, is that the quality of pitching isn't always there, right? Well, you play especially if you play like in elite SEC level college baseball, guys are throwing strikes, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna face better control pitchers than you would in low A and high A, and so like you're forced to swing the bat more. And I just think college baseball, like that's the culture, right? It's like, hey, like we play, we want to put the ball in play, we want to have that mindset. Well, it's about development, right? So it's like, why do I care if I strike out 30% of the time, right? It's like it's about development. So,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of curious about that, but yeah, I mean that's a concern, like you said. Like you can't put a guy in the top 100 that has a sub 40 hit tool. That's
Yeah.
just that's going to be impossible.
Yeah. Two other guys I want to mention that I think are actually three other guys that I mentioned. I think that are like that 125 to 150 range. I think Ramon Ramirez is one of them for me.
Yeah.
Guy's
Mhm.
posted 879 OPS. He's got 11 homers. He got 72 RBIs this year, 23 doubles. Strikeout rate's in a really good place. The walk rate could probably see that increase a little bit, but he's a guy I think that gets out of the top 100 because I think there's concerns of where he's going to play defensively. Um, he's got a 60 grade arm, so like he could fit behind the dish, but I think there's concerns on like the the receiving has improved a little bit, but he still struggles a little bit with the blocking. And so like I think that Ramon Ramirez would be in a top 100 if he had a better defensive outlook at a catcher. Because you're looking at a guy who has got a better hit tool, who has maybe not as much power as Mitchell, but pretty close. He's probably above average power, where Mitchell's got a plus power. But a guy with a very strong arm. So I feel like if he could have figure out the defense a little bit, he's a top 100. I mean, then Zion Rose, the Royals first rounder. I this is a guy who's got above average tools across the board. Basically everything from the arm, from the field, from the hit to the power. Like this is a kid that I don't think gets enough credit. You see, like Drew Burress is in the top 100. I think Zion Rose isn't that far off from Drew Burress. I think Drew Burress has got some more power, has a kind of a better track record, but I think Zion is a guy who's just on the cusp of that top 100. The last guy I'll mention, and I don't think he's maybe in the top 150 because of the injury, is Justin Lampkin. I think
Yeah.
he was on the verge of being a top 100 prospect until he got hurt.
Yeah. I agree with those lists. I think those make a lot of sense. Ramo Ramirez is a tough one because the hit tool's fantastic. Like you said, it's kind of the position. He's not as athletic as Mitchell, which is kind of funny to say with a guy with a 30 speed tool, but reality is Ramirez is not as athletic, but he's super polished. That there's power upside there. It's just going to be a matter of where does he fit, because probably catcher isn't the long-term fit. And also just with Zion Rose, I think you make a great point. And the fact is, like, Zion Rose is in high A ball. I mean, and Drew Burress is in low A ball. And Zion Rose is striking out less in high A ball than Drew Burress is in low A ball. I'm not trying to bash on Burress in single A. I get probably why the A's are thinking that. Probably want to ensure everyday bats. The hitting environment in Stockton in the California League is very friendly, so you want to boost his confidence. You don't want to put him in a high A environment, which might not be as great. But Zion Rose is doing pretty well, and we're going to talk a little bit about that more. But I mean, he's holding his own, and I think that I think that's a good sign, and I think that he probably deserves more respect. That if you're putting Drew Burress as, hey, this is a top 100 guy, then Zion Rose has to be within that range, within 20 or so at the very least.
Yeah, I do want to give Drew Burress some credit though, because he now has a 1065 OPS, and he's got 4 doubles, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 15 walks, 21 strikeouts in 16 games. So he's kind of turned it around. The strikeout rate, like you said, still high. I think almost 28%. But yeah, I feel like Zion is still trying to kind of figure it out. And like you said, we'll mention it. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we get into drafty updates and Rule 5 protections, I'm going to do one more topic here. Death of pro scouting. So we saw that the Marlins are the latest team to cut their entire pro scouting department. A lot of teams are opting for video again. I've gone out and scouted for the MLB draft for Just Baseball, and I see not a lot of scouts anymore, and I see video guys. So I went and saw when I was at Georgetown or at Virginia, they would just send their video guy. And so you still see scouts in the stands, but you see a lot of video guys out there in the stands as well. The Royals are one of the few teams with robust scouting departments. I think you were referring to Jake Mintz's tweet from Cespedes, or was it Cespedes Barbecue, BBQ?
Yep.
He made the point that the Royals, but you look at the teams that they're grouped with, it's the Dodgers, the Rays, the Yankees, all these teams who have the top farm systems in all of baseball. So to me, it's like almost kind of indicative of the top farm systems have a pro scouting department, and they mix a blend of analytics and pro scouting to make their farm system the best.
Yeah, it's also one of the things I always find frustrating with some Royals fans is everybody says, "Oh yeah, the Royals are super cheap or they're a super small market team." And like you said, I mean, they in terms of pro scouting, I mean, they're up there with a pretty good class of teams, and not just teams that are just good, but teams that are big budgets, right? Dodgers, Yankees, Rays are not, but the Rays are very big scouting. But it's a really interesting thing because it's just pro scouting is such a kind of a controversial thing. Do you need a guy, in-person guys there for that pro scouting role, or can you do it through video and technology? We're seeing some of these ball clubs that are kind of just saying, we don't need to. And it's kind of all over the range, right? It's not just like the Marlins and the Orioles, right? Who are like, okay, and Astros, who are notoriously cheap, but even like the Braves, who are a pretty good organization, have been known as a scouting organization. They have no pro scouts. And I think that's kind of to me, it's just a really interesting one because scouting is just so important to the fabric of the game. And I know just it goes beyond just like the results, right? I mean, I think the one thing that the Royals really, really like pride themselves is like, hey, we're kind of creating lifelong baseball people, and scouting is a part of that. And we have our appreciation for that. And then you're kind of seeing the loss of this and teams getting away from it. How does that affect the game overall? I thought it was just really interesting. And I know that especially when a lot of these teams is there going to be pressure on the Royals to say, maybe we need to cut the scouting department. And that's been something that Dayton Moore and now JJ Piccolo have really held on to. It's like, no, we're not going to do that. Scouting is really important to who we are. But will technology kind of change things? Will just results change things? I mean, those are things that to really think about in the wake of this move.
Yeah, and I get that you can see things in video, right? You can see stances and swings, and you can see the makeup on the mound and kind of the the perceived velocity and those kind of things. But it's like you can't see a guy run a hard 90 most of the time, like unless you set up multiple camera angles. You can't see a guy like run a hard 90. You can't see like how guys handle adversity on a video. You can't see like I think of an example when I saw Devin Taylor with Indiana. He was playing in one of the coldest weather games he's ever played at when he were playing Maryland, and like you could just tell he didn't have it at the plate. But he was bunting to try to get base hits. He was trying to do things to move the runner over. He was still playing elite defense. He was on the bases when he got on base via walk or via bunt single. He was trying to steal second. Like you don't necessarily see all of that in the video unless you're filming the entire game from multiple angles.
Yeah, that's so true. And like you said, it's like the makeup part. And these are human beings we're talking about. And these are human and sometimes we see a lot of prospects like, why didn't they pan out? And the reality is like, yeah, you can look at their numbers, you can look at their highlight tapes, but like if you're sometimes seeing the day-to-day, will you kind of then notice the little things? How does he respond to adversity? How does he respond to his teammates? How does he respond to his coaching? And if you're investing millions of dollars or investing money, and even from a pro scouting end, it's like, hey, is this guy going to be the right fit on our team if we're scouting another guy, or is this a guy that we want to bring into our organization from another organization? You don't always see that in video because you're not going to be able to see like that guy's piss attitude or something like that that's going to poison a clubhouse in a video. But but I get it though, because there is a lot that you can see, and especially if you're a cheap team or a team that's like, we believe in the data and the analytics overall, and
Yeah,
then I get why you would go that route.
yeah. I agree. That kind of wraps it up for some of the topics we wanted to kick off with. We're going to get into some drafty updates and Rule 5 protection projections. But before we do that, we want to take a quick break.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner impossible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance. The attorneys at Northland Injury Law have been serving the Kansas City area for over 40 years, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. They want to help you, and we don't get paid unless we get money for you. If you have a case, call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878 now.
Alrighty, we are back on Royals Pipeline, ready to dive into some of the updates on the draftees. Not a ton to get into here just because there hasn't been a lot of debuts. Most of the guys are playing in the Bridge League, which there's really no stats. You really don't get any video about what's happening in the Bridge League. But we talked about him a little bit. Let's talk about Zion Rose. 268 average, 103 wins, run created plus, 098 ISO. Been walking a ton. He's been making contact. Power hasn't really showed up. I think he only has one double, one home run. But he's finding his way in high A right now, and he's looking pretty good.
Right. I think that was something when we talked with Brian Bridges. I think the big thing was like, hey, we need guys who can't strike out, right? And it's like that's kind of the big gap that we've had in the past and we're trying to address. And Rose has really responded with that. I mean, he's the WRC plus is strong, the walk to K ratio is strong, the ISO is not there, and he's not pulling the ball. And I know this because I posted this, and some people are like he needs to work on pulling the ball more. But pulling the ball is such like a complicated thing because it's like I think some people think it's like, oh, it's just a mechanical thing, and if you just twist your elbow like that, it's like no, it's like a lot of it's pitch recognition, right? A lot of it's adjustment, and a lot of it's mindset, right? And it's I think with a guy like Rose, who's been a very strong contact hitter, I mean, I think he's going up there not necessarily like, hey, I'm gonna swing for the fences and own in on that pitch that I can hit for a home run. Like I want to put the ball in play. And sometimes that takes time. It takes time getting pitch recognition and it's also like going from college to the draft to high A ball. That's a big bear of a transition. I mean, that's a lot of moving we're talking about. That's a lot. And and he was in the bridge league for a little bit. So talk about all the movement. And that affects the guys. I mean, even Jack Caglione, when he made the debut in high A, he was pulling the ball, but he was hitting a lot of ground balls. And a lot of people are like, oh, like he's going to be a bust now because he's not doing well in high A. Well, it's tough. It's just a tough transition that debut year. And I just don't think people understand that. I don't think you can really get a good feel until that first full year because they've had a full off season and they've really adjusted to kind of the philosophy and the developments. But right now I feel like Zion's holding his own. He's doing what he was known to do, which was make contact and show plate discipline. If he was not showing that, I'd be concerned, but he is. So I feel like we're on good track.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have to talk about one of his teammates in high A who has been absolutely going off. Undrafted free agent out of Creighton, Ben North. Has a 177 wins run created plus, posting a 1131 OPS. He's got a 421 OBP, 710 slug. I get it. 9 games, 31 at bats. He's got a double, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 6 walks, 8 strikeouts, and 2 stolen bases. Ben North is doing it all. He's 23, so he's a little bit old for high A. But again, this is an undrafted free agent guy that they kind of believed in. They spent some of that extra money that they didn't sign. I'm blanking on Hudson Devon.
Right.
So you're able to get a guy like Ben North, but he's been really impressive.
I know. God forbid, why didn't we sign Hudson Devon, our 19th rounder? But it's I think this is again was a really great pickup. I was really intrigued by this. Like you said, he was an older guy. He's one of those guys that doesn't have like super flashy tools, but he was really polished. And I know Creighton's a mid-major, I guess I don't like Big East, I guess is better than some mid-major conferences, but it's not. Yeah,
not great. It's not a great,
not great baseball. Yeah,
it's like UConn and Creighton, and then the rest of the conference is real bad.
Yeah, they're not quite as good as they are in basketball. Let's just say that. But it's but he's been very polished, and he's kind of transitioned that to high A ball. Again, he's hitting for average. He's showing good, walk to K ratios. He's absolutely mashing. Again, small sample, but for a guy that was undrafted, right, that 20 rounds, like that he went through, look, it's looking like a good pickup. And I think that's why, like, sometimes, like, when we don't sign guys, it's like that's why those undrafted signees are so key because, hey, this is the value that you would probably get anyways from a 19th or a 20th rounder.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been really awesome to kind of watch and see what he's been doing. And hopefully we'll see him in Double A. Probably not this year. He probably won't start there till next year. But again, he'll be old 24 probably at that time for Double A. But awesome to see kind of Ben North off to the hot start. Want to talk about one more bat here. Camden Johnson. Not pretty 35% strikeout rate. Does have 7 stolen bases. Does have 5 RBIs in 12 games. 13% walk rate, but it's not been great for Camden Johnson. This is a guy, though, Bridges talked about, like, the hit tool was a bit of a concern, right? But the tools are just off the board. You see it with the speed. He's got 7 stolen bases already in 12 games. Defensively, he's really good. He's got a lot of power there that just hasn't shown up yet. So, like, he might be just getting adjusted too high, getting adjusted too low A. But yeah, you want to see the strikeouts come down a little bit.
Right, I would, and and especially with a college guy like him, it's like you kind of wish that he would get more on the ground running, and the K rate is pretty high, and that's kind of a reason why I think he went a little bit low, in the draft, and why the Royals kind of overslotted him. but again, I think probably there's a little bit of hangover there, right? Like he's wins the national title with Oklahoma, kind of riding that kind of sensation, and then he's going to Columbia, in low A ball where it's just the environment's different. And I remember that. I remember having a conversation with Javier Vaz, years ago and on a previous podcast. And I remember Vaz saying, yeah, sometimes it feels a little bit like summer or fall ball, in low A. It's just like we're kind of going out there and playing, and that's really all there is to it. And so, I'm not worried yet with him. I mean, I think we'll see what he does for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they still push into high A next year, just even if the numbers aren't great just because of the age. But you can see the tools, you can see the athleticism. I mean, stealing bases out there. He's shown some great defensive plays. I mean, if you follow like the Columbia Fireflies Twitter, he's on there making a lot of great plays. So he's obviously showing the glove. It's still legit. It's just that he's going to have to cut those Ks if he's going to really move through this system.
Yeah, and he's got the versatility kind of play all over, right? So that's the other thing that he's got going for him. So yeah, you just kind of hope the hit till kind of figures itself out. Moving over to arms, probably not. So there's not a ton of guys on this list because arms don't usually make their debuts. Like we probably won't see Taylor Rabe out there. He'll probably just stick to the Bridge League because I get a lot of, especially with a guy like Rabe, where Ole Miss made the playoffs, like that. The guys get too many innings under their belt, and they probably are just throwing bullpens or throwing in like lower leverage Bridge League games just to kind of get them through the rest of the year. But we have seen Ethan McIlvain throw from he was from the University of Arkansas. He's gotten 3 appearances, 3 2/3 innings, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, 0 ERA. This was one of my favorite picks that the Royals made in the draft this year. It's a 5th rounder. McIlvain has been a highly touted guy ever since he came out of high school. So when he went to campus, there was talks that he could be like a legit kind of Friday night starter. Just never really panned out. Arkansas threw him in the bullpen. It was absolutely dominant for the Razorbacks in the bullpen. It seems like the Royals want to keep him in that same kind of role, and the stuff just plays. It plays real well. And I think this is like a type of arm that could move quickly through the system, and the Royals have a dominant lefty that's in their bullpen in not too long.
Right, and the Royals don't have a lot of lefty depth right now. I mean, maybe I know right now they're using Daniel Lynch as a starter. I don't know how long that's going to last. And then right after that, it's like Connor Thomas, right? It's not like it's like you a lot of great depth. And if McIlvain kind of irons out the walks in high A, I mean, it's totally plausible that he could be in double A to either start the year or maybe like shortly after. I mean, they drafted him to be a mover, and I know that. When we talked with Bridges, that's kind of what he talked about. It's like, hey, this guy's real polished. We want him to move. So, I agree. I think I think there's some really potential. The stuff plays. The big thing is just like, will he be able to harness the control? It's such short outings. I mean, right. It's like only a few outings. So like the walks can change just like that, in a few more outings.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think McIlvain's going to be a fun one to follow. Talking about one more lefty here, Justin Legurnick, 6th rounder, so went right after McIlvain out of Clemson. Kind of a similar profile. Didn't have quite as the dominance that McIlvain had in college. I think he posted over a 4 ERA. Had pretty good strikeout numbers per his innings pitched, but the walks were high. It has not been pretty for Justin Legurnick in low A. 2 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 11 runs, 8 earned runs, hit by pitch, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts. Batters hitting 467 against him. You guys not getting him up the long ball. He's got 0 home runs, so we got that going for Justin. But yeah, this is one of the concerns coming out of the draft for him was the command and the control. Obviously, it's been kind of an issue since he's gotten to low A. The amount of contact that he's been giving up, I think, is a little bit more surprising for me. Like he's getting hit pretty hard. Like I mentioned, he's got a 467 in batting average against, 4.50 whip. Like the hits are just coming at 7 hits in 2 2/3 innings is a lot of hits to give up.
Yeah. And I think that's a big concern. And it's not, I think there's just a lot of things that aren't looking good in the profile, giving up a lot of hits, giving up a lot of walks, not a lot of strikeouts. And again, I think one of the things that we have seen in Columbia is, they have played a pretty tough schedule. And I think the Fireflies have kind of faded a bit, in the last couple weeks. So my guess is, he's been a victim of the competition. I know they played Augusta, who's a really good team right now. And so I think part of it was just that you're kind of you're debuting against a really good low A team. But at the same time, it's like he's got to make those adjustments. I mean, much like McIlvain, he's a guy that they drafted because they want to move quickly, and if you can't move quickly, they're not going to have a whole lot of patience for him long term.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like they gave him, I think, some decent money in
Yeah.
the 6th round. I can't remember what his signing bonus was, but yeah, you want to see a little bit more from him, especially being a college guy in low A. You're expecting a little bit more. Moving on to our next segment here, looking at Rule 5 protection. So the Rule 5 draft is in December. Teams are going to need to protect players from that draft. So basically, once you get a certain amount of eligibility, I think in the minor leagues, you qualify for the Rule 5 draft. Any team that takes a player in the Rule 5 draft has to have them on the major league roster for the entire season. We saw the Royals do that with what's his name, the pitcher for the Yankees. Brad Keller, yeah.
Yeah.
Not TJ Sycamore, but it was
Matt Sauer.
Yeah, Matt Sauer was Sauer or Schauser. I can't remember. Yeah. So he didn't pan out because Royals released him and he wound up going back to the Yankees. But we have some players we want to walk through here. I guess, I saw this. You have this question here. Will we have one with labor issues? Good question. I don't know.
We don't know. We might not have one. It doesn't even matter. But but I think it's going to be kind of important because, again, those moves are going to come anyways before like the CBA or before they decide the CBA expires. So whether or not like we're going to have a Rule 5 draft, the team's going to have to make those decisions anyway on guys. And so, so again, there's a good amount. We didn't obviously go over every one of them, but we went over ones that could be realistic additions because, they could, again, a team has to have them on the team for the whole year. So these guys have to be able to show that they can play 162 games in some shape or form. That's why you see a lot more pitchers selected in the Rule 5 draft than hitters, because it's a lot easier to hide a pitcher than it is a hitter, right? You just can't like, oh, we're just going to play this one hitter every 7 days. Like at that point, it's like, this is just a waste of a roster spot. But again, there is a list of players that we have.
Yeah, and then for players, it's like you get guaranteed league minimum, right? I think once you're on the 40-man. So like you're getting 800. I don't know is it like 860,000 now? What's the league minimum? It's like
I think it's gone up to that. I have to double check on it, but it's gone up, and we'll see how much it continues to go up with this.
780,000.
Yeah, I mean that's really good money, right? I mean that's you're making 6 figures, you're near $1 million. So again, this is life-changing stuff for some of these guys who are making, not great cash right now unless they got a signing bonus, as a rookie.
And MLB has proposed to raising it to $1 million in 2027. Well, the NLDPA countered for a proposal with $1.5 million. So they want to double it going into 2027.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, inflation, man. That's you gotta adjust.
Yeah.
So.
Want to go through the first player you have listed here, Brett Squires, first base outfielder, 124 wins run created plus, 21 home runs in AAA. Been one of the best bats in the minor leagues for the Royals, arguably, this entire season.
Yeah, he really has. And again, 21 home runs, just has been really just came out on fire this year. It's still possible that he could be added. He's been Rule 5 eligible already, so it's not like he's a new guy to this list. But at the same time, like he has a profile and he's shown that he can really produce at the highest level. So it feels like he's a guy that a team would take a chance on, especially if they need help in the corner outfield positions or at first base.
Yeah. And I feel like you look at free agency and minor league contracts you can give guys. It's like the production that Squires has had. It's going to be hard to find that from just some minor league sign. We see all them sign like Abraham Toro and all these other guys, and they haven't performed as well as Squires. I feel like it makes sense. Like you give him a shot next year in the major leagues at some point when someone gets hurt, see how the bat plays. Nothing happens, you DFA him at some point. But I feel like if you're going to guarantee anybody a salary from free agency, you might as well just give it to a guy in-house who performed.
Right. I mean, it's like, you're right. Like, it's like, do we give it to a Starling Marte type who's going to be making $1 million, or do you maybe make that major league minimum with Brett Squires, who's could be a little bit better and has more options and control? So I get it. He doesn't necessarily have a position, but sometimes you just need the bat, and let him try to figure it out and see what he can do with an opportunity. So I think he could be an add to the 40-man this offseason.
Yeah. The next guy is Jack Panetta, basically a utility type infielder, almost like a Nick Lofton type. 107 wins runs WRC plus in Omaha, 144 WRC plus between AA and AAA. I have a hard time putting him on the 40-man roster because you already have a Nick Lofton on the 40-man roster. I get he gets a lot of comps to Lofton because they both went to Baylor. And then you have Tyler Tolbert also on the 40-man roster. So unless you're DFAing one of those guys, I don't see room for Banana here.
Yeah, and he's an interesting one where I think he's a guy who might get selected and we might be really surprised because he's really been hitting well. He doesn't launch the ball well. His barrel rate's not great, but he does hit the ball very hard. I think his exit velocity averages around 90, which is pretty good. I mean, he's obviously hit in AA and AAA. He has a very disciplined approach. He can play multiple positions, but like you said, he just doesn't really fit for what they need. You got Nick Lofton, you got Michael Massey, you got Tyler Tolbert. Where does Pineda fit? He really doesn't. And then you'll have Michael Garcia healthy next year. So I don't say you protect him, but it wouldn't be surprised if another team with a Dyer who's really looking for that.
I think someone takes him.
Yeah, I could definitely see somebody take him, and a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't expect that. And it's like, yeah, because he's got a good profile, and I could see a team wanting to take a chance on him.
He's 27 years old, so I think that's the other thing. It's like unless you think he's going to be another Whit Merrifield, it's really hard to kind of put him onto the 40-man roster.
Absolutely.
Next one is Jacob Berry. I mean, I feel like if they haven't put him on the 40-man with Jack Haggs kind of being down with an injury, like I don't know when Jacob Berry is going to get a shot. Same thing, they brought up Matthew Lugo as well instead of giving Jacob Berry a shot. So I have a hard time seeing Berry. Like we talked about the torrid hot start he had in Omaha. It's kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit, and it's a guy who can't play anywhere defensively.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been his problem, right? I mean, that was a problem. I mean, it's hard because Barry has some draft pedigree, right? I mean, he was 6th overall pick by the Marlins when he in the draft came from LSU, had a really strong pedigree, just hasn't really put it together. And so much depends on his bat because he's not giving you any really defensive value anywhere. So, he, like you said, he got off to a great start in Omaha. Some people are thinking, oh man, maybe like the Royals tapped into something, but he's cooled down. And at the very end of the day, it's like you have a guy that can hit the ball hard, but doesn't launch it very often, doesn't barrel it very often, and it's just like he's pretty one-dimensional. So I don't see him being added to the 40-man roster this year either.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if a team took him either.
Right, exactly. Right. So I mean, I would be surprised too, especially can you guarantee that he can play every day? I don't think you could.
Unless the Marlins really want him back,
Maybe they got rid of their pro scouting department. They got money to spend now, right? Let's lose it on some players.
Yeah. Next one's Carson Rocafort, 30 home runs, 110 WRC plus, 4 and that's between AA and AAA. I see you put don't protect here. I almost think he could have a shot to get protected. Because of the prospect pedigree. Like I know he's not a top 100, but he's been highly touted, I think, across Major League Baseball in some sense. You have a guy like John Rave and you have Matthew Lugo as 2 outfielders on this 40-man roster. Like, are those guys guaranteed to stick around as the 40-man deadline comes along? I feel like you could put a Rocafort on there and replace a Rave or a Lugo.
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth on this. So Rocafort has, he's made his AAA debut, and the stats haven't been pretty. I mean, it's now we have a little bit more advanced metrics in terms of like StatCast, and so we can kind of see what his whiff rates, and it's not great. I mean, 64.9 Z contact percentage. It's a small sample, so we want to like give the benefit of the doubt, but it's just one of those things that's been a concern of his. Is like, can he make enough contact? Can he lessen the strikeouts, to be a serviceable player? I could see him being added because, like you said, there is some prospect pedigree. We know he's a good defensive outfielder.
Yeah,
he's been the Frank White Defensive Player of the Year for the whole organization for 2 years. I think could the Royals maybe do something interesting? Maybe they look at obviously getting rid of a John Rave. I mean, because him and John Rave are kind of superfluous. But do you maybe look at shopping Kyle Isbell, maybe finding another center fielder that you can get in free agency, and then maybe pick up Rockefort with the idea that Rockefort is kind of the guy that can take over or platoon or do something of that sort. So I could see it too. I don't know. I guess like I I could. He's also a guy that I don't know if the team would pick him up either in a Rule 5. Sometimes like he could be selected, sure, but I also don't know either. So that's why I said don't protect. He's a guy that I could see the Royals roll the dice with and say, hey, let's see if he gets selected, and if he doesn't, then we're all good.
Yeah, I agree. Last batter here. I'm trying to think because we've got a long list here. So let's go through the last few batters here. We have Peyton Wilson, 95 WRC plus in AAA. We have Spencer Nivens, outfielder, 271 average, 107 WRC plus, 8 home runs, 15 RBIs in AA. We have Austin Charles, 289 average, 118 WRC plus in high A, and then Hung Chan catcher, 243 average, 101 WRC plus, 9 home runs. I don't know I would see any of these guys getting protected.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, like Charles is the best performer out of all of them, and he's kind of he's still in high A, so I'd be shocked if the team was like, oh, we're going to roster this guy for an entire season. Nivens maybe has the best chance to get selected, but he has kind of had a somewhat down year and hasn't performed up to expectations. Peyton Wilson,
Yeah.
it's just hard. Like he is a competitive balance pick, and you were expecting so much more from him, but he just hasn't really panned out for the Royals. And I have a hard time seeing a team taking a shot on him.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I did put initially protect for Austin Charles. I probably would switch that out the more I think about it, because like you said, he's only in high A. The injury really killed him, because I think if he didn't get hurt, he probably would have been in Double A by now. And then maybe that becomes the discussion of, because Charles is a very projectable guy. I mean, the guy is super tall, super athletic, has some really good skills. He's finally showing the power a little bit this year, but he's missed a lot of the year due to injury, and he just returned off there. And even if he has a strong start, when a major league team says, yeah, like we trust that this guy could be able to hit major league pitching after only seeing high A, it's very unlikely. And then everybody else, everybody else is eligible, but I don't think like Spencer Nivens probably has a good shot, but the power really hasn't been there. And I just don't see a team saying like, yeah, we can trust that Spencer Nivens could be a regular outfielder for us.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the arms. So we have two here that you have listed protected. Lucas Braun, right-handed pitcher that they just got from the Atlanta Braves in the Lane Thomas Bailey Falter trade. And then Hunter Owen, left-handed pitcher who's been in Double A. Braun, I think, is an easy protect.
Yes.
I feel like he's going to be competing for the 5th rotation spot in spring training.
Yeah, I think that one's a very easy one. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen him, but my guess is, he's already got 111 innings. My guess is they're probably going to only want him to throw a little bit more, and then they're probably just going to shut him down. So that's kind of why I don't think you're going to see him for a September call up. But he feels like a very easy offseason ad. You don't acquire him at the trade deadline if you're just going to say, oh, we're going to lose him in the Rule 5 draft the next December. So yeah, he's got some good stuff. He's kind of faded a little bit in Omaha, which kind of shows that maybe he's feeling some fatigue, which means that we're going to even less likely see a major league debut this year. But I think he could compete for that 5 spot in the rotation in spring training.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting just to kind of see how it pans out with him. I think he maybe starts in Omaha next year, but I think he could have a legit shot if he performs in spring well. Hunter Owen, I struggle with. I know you have protect, but it's a 6.45 ERA this year. Got 23.7% strikeout rate in Double A. Like, Hunter Owens had some big upside for the Royals for quite some time. Dealt with some injuries, I think, throughout his career. He was a 4th round pick out of Vanderbilt, and the upside was high for him. He had a really, really good 2025 season where he struck out 107 batters in 94 2/3 innings with a 3.8 ERA. Mm-hmm. I could see a team potentially taking a shot on him, even though he's had the down season this year.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I selected Hunter Owen is this, because part of me feels that we're going to see a move to the bullpen. So I think we could see him he's had a couple outings that he's been getting double-digit strikeouts. I know he had 12 strikeouts, I think, in like 7 innings a couple outings ago. I think he had like 8 or 9 strikeouts in the following outing. So it seems like he's kind of finally finding that strikeout groove. I just think I just think that Owen's really more of a reliever than a starter. I mean, I just think that his profile feels that way. I feel like he just is a guy that could come in and really lock down a few innings or maybe 1 to 2 in a tough spot. And that's why I think they could add him, because I just think, again, we've talked about there's a dearth of lefties in the upper minors that could really pitch. I mean, like I said, it's Connor Thomas right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you could find a lot of guys via trade or free agency that could really be like, oh, this is going to be a great pickup. So I could see them looking at Hunter Owen, maybe like an Angel Zerpa of like, hey, this guy's a project, and we're just going to really like, maybe he's not going to debut in 2026, but maybe a guy who could, I mean, 2027, but maybe he's a guy at the end of 2027 or 2028 that can come into our bullpen and give us a spark.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Something I didn't consider is like the move to the bullpen. I think that's what would get him a 40-man protection, is because they think the arm is going to play in the bullpen, even maybe next year if he starts dominating in AA, AAA. So I like that call there. Last 3 arms we have here are Henry Williams, Hunter Pattison, Emmanuel Reyes. Williams is posted a 5.43 ERA with a 5.90 FIP in 112 innings in AA and AAA. Henry Williams came over for, that wasn't the Yarbrough trade, but it was the Farlow trade.
Yep.
Hunter Pattison was a draft pick, 4.47 ERA. He's got a 6.27 FIP, 104 innings in AA and AAA. And then you have Emmanuel Reyes with a 4.11 ERA with 105 innings pitched in high A. So none of these guys seem protectable. Hunter Pattison, I think, is another guy who could benefit from potentially moving to the bullpen as well. Lefty that can kind of chuck it pretty well. But yeah, outside of that, I just have a hard time seeing any of these guys getting protected.
Yeah, I do too. And I don't see any of them getting selected. I mean, Williams, I just don't see a team selecting him, even though he's been in AAA for about a year. Reyes is a really intriguing one. He's seen a lot of development over the last couple of years. He was kind of known as really just more of a control guy with really not great stuff. He was like a 91, 92 mile per hour fastball, and now he's kind of got it up to like 95, 96. He really has a reliever mindset, and if you kind of watch him pitch, he definitely pitches like a reliever. I know when we talked with LP Lanchavan, I mean, he talked a little bit how Reyes really just attacks the zone, and he's kind of a guy that I could see move to the bullpen and find some more success. But I don't think you make that move with him on the 40-man. I think it's something like, I don't think he's going to be selected. And so let's make that move in AA next year and let's see what he can do. But he's a guy I think people shouldn't sleep on. Like I said, even if he's not protected, he's a guy that I think could do some damage, especially if the Royals say, hey, let's move him to the pen in 2027.
Yeah, I agree. That kind of does it for us on the Rule 5 guys here. Wraps up our episode. Make sure you're tuning into all the latest on KC Sports Network and your home of all the KC Royals coverage. But until next time, we'll see you.
See you.